Hi, my name is Colleen Shaddox. I'm a journalist and I am a member of the Rosette Neighborhood Collective, which is a group of people supporting Rosette Neighborhood Village, a community of tiny houses and tents in the backyard of Amistad Catholic Worker House, which is in New Haven's Hill neighborhood. Today we're going to talk a little bit about what makes this community different. I know you've been reading in the paper a bit about us and how we're not exactly rule followers, but there are great reasons for that, and my friends are about to share those reasons with you. I'm going to ask you to go around and just introduce yourself. Say a couple of words, your names and who you are. Christina?
My name is Christina. I'm 45 years old, lifelong New Haven resident, and for the past 3 years I've been unsheltered more than I haven't been. And I've tried resources, I've tried shelters, and I've tried everything, and I'm now a member of this collective, and I feel honored to be, and it's the safest and most stable I've felt in years.
And I'm Suki Godak. My husband Todd and I have been residents of the Rosette Neighborhood community here since April. We've been here since the very beginning. We've seen it change and form into what's now become a community in our home, and we absolutely feel that this is the best model I've seen, and we're hoping that we can embrace this as other cities have, and it's really an exemplary example of what I feel like we should follow. Everyone should follow as far as unhoused communities. You know, we are self-governing, and it does have benefits, and we'd like to share that with you guys.
Great. Shannon?
I'm Shannon Carter. I'm a recent MPH grad from the Yale School of Public Health, and I'm a housing researcher.
Mark?
I'm Mark Colville. I'm part of the Amistad House, which is where we're sitting today. And in fact, the backyard, about 1.5 years ago, we decided as a community here to turn over our backyard to unhoused people. And what has arisen in the backyard is a result of that. And we simply have declared that our backyard is a human rights zone, which means that the human right of people to take refuge together when they're not provided with adequate housing by the state, that's going to be respected here. So we simply started on that principle, and the community that is in the backyard, I'm very proud of being part of it, because people have really come together in a special way, and I think in a transformative way. So I'm really happy to be here. Thanks.
Suki, you brought up the idea of self-governance. Tell me how that works day to day. How do people make decisions? Who makes the rules?
We're big believers in the consensus. So instead of doing kind of some of us at the top making decisions while others follow, we all try to reach decisions as a group, and then we implement those, and it's kind of a trial and error basis, but we've had good luck with that. And we've developed a system amongst ourselves, just dividing up the chores and responsibilities of not only the residents in our living areas, but also in the meals and things that we serve to the community at large. So that's become a big part of the feeling of home and community here, which is giving back, what's been given to us, and that sense of hospitality, and kind of, playing it forward to other unhoused individuals.
I think of you as a really powerful activist who's gotten more powerful in the time I've known you. How has living in the backyard fed into that?
It's definitely shaped that. I was new to the unhoused activist movement as it is last year, and the more I've become involved, the more it's absolutely shaped my life and given me kind of a reason and a purpose for that. And it definitely helped me when I was trying to kind of get implemented into the community here, and getting to know my neighbors, and kind of that feeling of being a citizen and being a part of a community, and having that sense of belonging that we miss out on as being homeless individuals. And that's been a big part of it for me, and a big inspiration of it. So it's definitely rewarding.
You know, Christina, before we got started, you talked about other arrangements
Mhm.
where you felt the rules didn't work to keep you safe, and in fact, quite the opposite. You want to go on about that a little bit?
Yes, I have stayed in basically almost every incarnation of how you could be unsheltered in this city. I've stayed in an actual shelter, which was Columbus House. We were staying at the Village Suites during COVID, and you're set up randomly with any sort of roommate. There's not really a vetting system. There's not like college and you pick your likes and dislikes and you get put together with a roommate. It's nothing like that. I was threatened with violence. I was beaten, like almost every day, and like basically very traumatized. And then this past time out, I was staying in a drop-in centers, and there's pretty much nothing more degrading than, it's not even sleeping on the church floor, it's everything else that goes in with it. You have to get there 3 hours ahead of time, but you can't wait in line until an hour ahead of time. Then when you do that, and then you may or may not get in. But so everything's on this like weird time crunch. So, and then even at that, like you're woken up kind of violently at 6:15 in the morning and get kicked out. And then you have to walk, like it's as a human, it is so degrading. Just the whole process of it all, and it's like there is like the factor of safety, and which it's like I'm sleeping with one eye open because there's some dude next to me who is so drunk that I don't know what's gonna happen. You have to keep up. You can't take your shoes off. You have to keep all your stuff with you. It's like I can't even explain how degrading it is. And it's just like there's no, you have no motivation at that point, like because you just feel so low, and it gives you like, and you would think that you would have this sense of urgency that you want to get yourself out of this situation, but it's so demoralizing, like that you can't even think about that because all you do is think about the next place you're going to go. So you go from one drop-in center to the breakfast place on Olive Street to then maybe you could get into Safe Haven for a couple hours, then maybe you could go to desk, and it's like you just repeat the whole process all over again, and you have to be so this gives me a sense of autonomy that I haven't had, and a sense of safety, and I'm a pretty social person, so I was really lonely. Like very, very lonely. I didn't have anybody to relate to, anybody to talk to, anybody to bond with. And like that's unhealthy mentally. And that's the stuff that keeps people down. Yeah.
You told me a story about when you first came here and the first 3 days.
Yeah, oh
Can you
yeah.
talk about that?
Sure. So I had gotten evicted from where I was over at Temple Street Plaza. They gave me 10 minutes to pack up my life, and I had been reading about this place in the Independent for a while, and I've been kind of following like the story because it's absolutely fascinating. And so I'd asked the people at Safe Haven. I knew that one of the guys there had helped build the tiny houses, so I was like, "Could you bring me over there, just check it out? Maybe like they'll let me stay a night." That was the day that they were all moving into the tiny houses. Suki was just like, "Oh, take our spot, the tent." Like, I was like, voted in, or accepted in, and I literally slept for 3 days. I got up to have some breakfast or some coffee, but I just went back to my tent, and like, the sense of relief was unbelievable, and like I got to sleep with both eyes closed. Yeah, for the first time in weeks, and I just wake up without having anxiety attacks, without so this place is amazing. This place is really like it's saved my life, like definitely. Yeah.
Shannon, there's so much to unpack here from a public health perspective, from what we both heard from both these ladies. Can you talk a little bit about how the provision of housing is really healthcare in itself?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think I firmly believe that housing is like a social determinant of health and housing policy, obviously, but just some of the things that are coming up, and I think I'm going to try to stay focused because I think there's so many directions I could go, but just the sense of safety is really important for people's physical well-being, just down to like a base level, but also having that stability, and some of the research that has been done recently around people's ability to kind of maintain a safe space, but also like a place to store their belongings, whether that's documents that they need, sentimental items, just, you know, survival things which are often lost in sweeps. There was a recent article that came out in JAMA earlier this year estimating, using a modeling formula, about the increased excess deaths related to housing sweeps. And I know in New Haven there's been some recent kind of high profile deaths kind of around some of the sweeps. And that article actually estimated that between a 15 and 25% increase in excess deaths among unhoused people who are subject to this type of displacement over a 10-year period. I think another thing that's really important to talk about just in this context is the fact that there's not great information on people when they get scattered to the wind like that. It's very possible that the impact is much greater than a lot of the literature is talking about. There's an organization called Homeless Deaths Count that does kind of piecemeal, it gets data from different states. Connecticut doesn't have an overall state number. There's a report from New Britain and Norwalk from 2019 that said that 21 people died while homeless, but there's nothing for the whole state, and there's also, that's likely an undercount just based on the reality of living that way.
You know, what you say about the sweeps is so striking to me, because the justification for the sweeps is always safety. Why do we not understand what keeps unhoused people safe?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I'm the one to speak to that, but I would say that it's particularly cruel when we do have this data suggesting that these sweeps are so unsafe. I would imagine it has something to do with liability on the part of the government, but I mean, I'm not in their minds, so I can't necessarily speak to why they would continue to choose this in the face of evidence that it's dangerous.
And Mark, I think that gets a little bit to where this invitation started from you and your wife for people to come make a home in your backyard. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, you know, I think that, you know, my wife and I landed here in 1994 from New York City, you know, with the expectation of joining a few others in building a community and house of hospitality here according to the principles of the Catholic Worker Movement, which don't need to get too much into except to say that we believe in the daily practice of the corporal and spiritual works of mercy, nonviolence, both as a personal and interpersonal lifestyle, as well as a method for social change, which really is beginning in the neighborhood, and kind of pooling resources and living simply. The traditional notion in the churches of voluntary poverty. So we came here with an intention to live that way, both as a nuclear family, but also in context of a house, a community house, and I would say that we've since then have been trying to follow where the neighborhood has led us, and I think in recent years, particularly in the past 10 years, what we've been listening to from people on the street has largely been expressed here very well. That it got us to discerning. What does it mean to be people of hospitality, and then we kind of came up against 10 years ago the UN actually did a study of U.S. cities and how we deliver services, particularly to people who are unhoused. And their report was really scathing. It came out with just naming a whole bunch of typical municipal laws that are in existence all over the country, including in New Haven, that criminalize homelessness. And reading through that report again 10 years ago, we felt immediately that we needed to do something about this. We started sort of, you might say, examining the water that we're swimming in as people who are trying to be helping other people and building community and stuff. So that really got us into discerning, well, is it enough, we're trying to be people of hospitality, is it enough to just, have an open door for meals and, take in a few people as the structure of the house would permit, to take in a few people from the street until they get back on their feet again. I mean, that's been our general practice over the years. But again, we felt that, at this moment in our city's history, that it was time for us to change. We need social change in this city. We have people freezing, all winter long. We have people being evicted from public spaces mercilessly in many cases, without provision of another place to go. And so what we realized was, and again, based on hearing this, the United Nations is it's a body that we as a nation are committed to by congressional treaty. This is not just, a good idea to follow their directives, We are bound to them by law. And so we started to come up against some of the municipal laws that are excluding people from taking refuge. So anyway, what we decided, and this is going back about a year and a half, was that that we had spent the previous few years trying to set up and successfully setting up tent cities on public land, but inevitably they were being bulldozed by the city, who was not sanctioning them. We realized, as we were trying to promote this, that really this is the only sense of community that seems to be available anymore to people who are unhoused. And again, I think I'm just echoing what I'm hearing and I have heard and what has just been expressed, And so that meant to us that if we wanted to really engage in hospitality going forward, that we needed to find where people are taking refuge and do our best to decriminalize those spaces so that they could be made more human, more safe, more sanitary, and again, available for the building of community. So that's all we tried to do. We simply, back in June of 22, we set up we put a sign on the back, entering the backyard, declaring it, to be a human rights zone. And then we proceeded to invite people in to take up residence there. Some had tents, some did not. Whoever came in, we said, we're not giving you a tent, we're giving you a piece of land. So wherever you put your tent down, that's your land, which obviously creates the possibility then for people to live as neighbors. Mm-hmm. And then it also creates the responsibility of being a neighbor. And again, the other part of this from my perspective is that I've noticed over the years that people who are subjected to chronic homelessness, you get socialized into a life where you've forgotten how to be a neighbor, where the other is not a neighbor, the other is somebody to compete with over this mythic scarcity of resources, etc. Anyway, so essentially to kind of wrap up where I'm coming from, we after opening up the backyard, for me it's been a personal journey on how do I get out of the way and let these people be who they are and be who they want to be together. Okay, and so we don't we don't impose rules on the backyard. We simply ask them to govern themselves and whatever rules they come up with by consensus that we're happy to help them, live that and enforce that. And so that's what we've tried to do. So whatever success has happened back there really can be attributed to the people who have lived there and taken us up on this, on this new kind of offer of hospitality. And as Suki was saying, now they're paying it forward in terms of, having an outward focus to others in the neighborhood who are hungry or, in need of community and stuff. So we have an open neighborhood. I call it a micro neighborhood. So that's where we're from.
People who like rules better than you and I may tend to say that they're there for safety and fairness. How do folks in the backyard ensure that there is safety and fairness? Like, can you talk a little bit about that, Suki? You've been here a long time.
We encourage everybody to discuss any issues that they have, whether that be with safety or with the general every day-to-day chores. We do kind of a division of labor, which is largely based on a volunteer basis. So everyone, does their part or attempts to do their part and fits into whatever lifestyle that they have now and our community's lifestyle. Excuse me, but largely, I think a lot of our success with that and with the rules is that everybody feels that it's their responsibility to kind of, not only take care of our guests when they come and with hospitality, but also to kind of enforce those or to just, communicate what those are to people when they come and visit our residence or our area. So, and we've been really successful with that. So, but we try not to go overboard with the rules.
But everybody had a say in making the rules.
Absolutely,
so it's
everybody
not
had a
imposed
part.
from the outside.
And we definitely made all those decisions as a consensus. Everyone agrees upon all the rules before they are put into place. And we have very few, but the ones that we do have are largely based just on the overall safety and privacy and just kind of giving people that sense of dignity that we've been missing.
I was so struck by you talked about when you came, Suki and Todd offered you their tent.
They did. They had a really lovely setup, and it was just all right there. They were just moving into their tiny home, and honestly, it was like I was like so overwhelmed and choked up. I couldn't even believe it, because I was like I had like a kind of a crappy little tent and everything. They're like, oh no, take this, and I was just like oh my god, this is like. You kind of forget. It's just like people are intrinsically good. People can be like terrific, and people like when you're just so overlooked for so long, and then someone just like I refer to it as my house, and someone just offered me their home, and I was just like, the stress just like really like went off. Like the feeling of belonging and being accepted as well is just. And you want to maintain it, and you want to keep it nice, and you want to, I know it seems ridiculous, but I have like a little carpet out there. I have a little chair, a little table, a little umbrella because it's my home. It's like where I feel like, I sweep the deck every day, and I, try to maintain it, make it look good, making sure no garbage is back there because it's just what you do. It's like when you're given this sense of dignity, you want to maintain it. And not take it for granted, and this is and show people too, like lead by example, that like this might be I might be unhoused, but I'm not feral. I'm an actual human being, and I like what I'm saying. It's like you're just for the other people, I'm pretty new. And so other people have moved in since I've been here, but you, again, like just lead by example. Like this is how I maintain my space. Like you don't have to do it exactly like this, but
Based on mutual respect.
Based on mutual respect, because I don't want. I'm not gonna leave my area all loaded up with garbage and everything like that, because I don't want to look at that from anybody else's area.
Right.
So just. Treat others like you want to treat yourself, like you want to be treated. Maintain your spot like you want to see the others maintained. No one wants to look out like it's like a dumping field.
It does give you a sense of pride in your community.
It really does. Oh no, I like take pictures and like send it to my friends of like every time I set up something new. You're like, oh my god, that's amazing. Because I do. I love it. Like, it's so for right now, it's the most ideal situation. Yeah, and I love my neighbors. I really do. Like we set up a fire pit out there. We sit. It's like very, like, just human. Really, just to like sit out there, have a nice fire, listen to some music, chit chat. Because before we had that, like, it gets dark out, we just kind of went in their tents and it gets like lonely.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like there is something really primal about the sitting around a fire and bonding with people.
Yeah.
It's just it's been going on forever.
Right.
So there's
That's right.
there's just something about it. And like people that I would have never been friends with, or not been friends with, but been interacted with.
Mm-hmm.
I find that I have so much in common with.
Mm-hmm.
One of my best friends here is a 69-year-old woman named Gypsy. She's insane and I love her to death. And we basically have nothing.
Everybody does.
We have like nothing in common, but we do. And we bicker and we fight. But she's literally my favorite person here. And I make her every night. I make her come out of her tent and sit with me by the fire.
I love that.
Yeah. So it's nice. It's lovely.
So, I mean, this, I think, just speaks to people's hearts. But from a scientific perspective, what's the importance of having this kind of belonging, these kind of relationships, to help yourself stand up and get on your feet?
Yeah, I mean, aside from what you guys are sharing, which I think is probably the most impactful, but I can just speak to you a little bit about, for example, being unhoused or homeless is a very stigmatized position in the society, both from the sense that it is criminalized, like Mark was talking about, and the criminalization of homelessness has increased over the last 10 years pretty drastically. So you have that stigma, and one of the things that can help with stigma is a community. It kind of is an insulating factor in stigma to just have people that are like you and that support you, and can help increase confidence and honestly decrease like negative health effects that we see in stigmatized populations over the long term.
Yeah, I would just kind of add, from my perspective, that it seems to me that, I don't want to, especially like a person in my position who's been trying to, to be part of sort of the social service delivery system, and also, of course, really trying to do some community organizing in order to change some of the, some of the policies and stuff. But I guess I would just say from my perspective that it seems to me that that we're not coming at this in terms of our compassion for people and all. We're not coming at this from any different angle than anybody else that's working in their own agencies and such in the city. It's just that I think we've engaged in a listening process here, and that it's clear that that most of the feedback that we've been getting now for a solid decade, more than that, is that there's lots of good initiatives about giving people shelter. Okay, and in fact, there's even the slogan that we've used over the years is housing first, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've come to adapt that to home first. Okay, because unfortunately, most of the initiatives that come from City Hall, because their source comes from the priorities of budget and liability, okay, as opposed to human rights, that we can become very efficient at stacking people up, warehousing them, keeping them warm during the winter. But most of these initiatives have sort of killed the possibility of community, to the point where, I've noticed in the past couple of years that, and particularly with the encampment sweeps that have been talked about already, and how dangerous those are. They're not only dangerous physically, and of course there's mortal danger involved there, but it's very clear to me now that there's no other possibility, or I don't see any other real possibilities for people to have community as unhoused people than these encampments. That's why is what really doubles down on the tragedy of destroying those, because obviously people are gathering in those tent cities in very rustic conditions in many cases, and in very unsanitary conditions. But it's clear that people are craving this sense of connectedness and community and place. Okay, you can't destroy that without replacing it with something better, and that's what we've been trying to say. So we're we're not using this model as a way of casting aspersions on other, policies, agencies, etc. Just to kind of, I think again, we're trying to listen to what's coming from the street and then trying to provide some space for it and then get out of the way and let people do it. We need, our policies need to be revamped in terms of they simply do not seem to trust people, to trust their agency, their autonomy, and the fact that, as Christina said, we're basically good, the human beings are basically good. We need to rediscover that in our policies and in our laws.
I've been asking you questions about community, not about structure, because I think the most important thing that Rosette Neighborhood Village built was community.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
But there is great attention now on those little tiny houses in the backyard, and I just want to give you a minute to review the kind of deliberation that went into constructing those things, the things that were put in place to make sure that folks would be healthy and safe in them.
Well, we were simply trying to, and in fact, the project, the tiny homes project itself, was kind of born of this collective that came together really around, the response to the clearing of encampments. We were getting inquiries once this was starting to hit the news. We were getting inquiries from all over the region of New Haven, saying, "What can we do? How can we, how can we remedy the situation for the victims of it? And so that's where the collective came from. But an interesting thing that happened to me when, or at least it's interesting to me, that when these houses came up, right? They came up about 3 weeks ago. All right, just on a Saturday, they were delivered in the morning. They were up by mid-afternoon, and interestingly, 4 weeks ago, everybody in the backyard was living in a tent, and at that point, they were considered to be homeless people. Okay, which means it's not quite the status of personhood, really. Homeless people are a social problem that get dealt with collectively. You scoop them up and you put them somewhere else. Okay, and that, in fact, that's been the reality of almost everybody in the backyard is there as a result of having been evicted from an encampment on public land. Okay, so again, 4 weeks ago, everybody was a homeless person. Then we put up 6 tiny homes. Now, mind you, they're made of this little composite material and some, I don't know, steel or aluminum, whatever. A little bit more permanent of a structure than a tent. And now suddenly, they've gone from the status of homeless person, which again, I contend is not fully human. Mm-hmm. Now they're tenants. Now we're landlords. Now we're housing developers. Okay? As I keep trying to tell everybody, we're human rights defenders. We're not housing developers. But isn't it interesting how? And in fact, I went out when we just got a an order of to cease and desist that came from City Hall. Okay, this was last week. So the other day, of obviously sharing this with the folks in the backyard, I told them, and it's very significant to me, illustrating what I'm trying to explain. When all of them have had this experience before of being evicted from these things, right? Once the notice comes, the next thing that comes is the bulldozers and the social workers, okay? Now we have, the situation is, we get bulldozers and social workers together now. I don't know if they all work in the same department, but that's how the social workers roll now. They come with bulldozers. What I told the people in the backyard a few days ago is, you're not being threatened with eviction. You're being threatened with litigation, okay? Which means they actually have to go to court and make an argument as to why this person and this person must vacate these buildings. It doesn't take much to, maybe reflect on that and say, where is this, where have we gone wrong, when we can actually eliminate, a whole cross-section of poor people from the status of personhood. That's a very serious, I would say a very serious condemnation of the way in which we are delivering services here to our most vulnerable people. And I take personal responsibility for that. So I think, and we're all kind of committed to changing that,
We're almost at time, but I often find that questions don't really encapsulate everything people want to say. So I want to give you each a chance to just briefly tell us one thing that you would like people to know about Rosette Neighborhood Village. And I'll start with you, Mark.
Well, I suppose, again, from my perspective, I've been running some of the interference with City Hall, and again, just to kind of clarify that, there's this public argument going on right now, which, to my mind, doesn't really capture the process as it's going forward. Just to say that, yes, we've gone above and beyond some of the zoning laws and the building code. Actually, these homes, again, they were built according to zoning laws and according to building codes. However, they're just not New Havens, okay? And the reason for that is because the building codes and particularly the zoning laws in this city are 100 years old, and they didn't anticipate the need for this kind of thing, the reality of the permanent reality of homelessness, which is unfortunately what we're living in now in the 21st century. So the dispute with the city is not about evicting people, criminalizing what we're doing, etc. It's a process that we're entered into, and we are coming to an agreement on a permit process. So I wanted to clarify that, and also the public perception that we simply set these up haphazardly as if they were tents or something. We had a landscape architect in here. We have the company that makes these homes sent 2 employees for 2 days to help us set them up so that they would be, respectful of safe building codes and zoning laws. So I think there's a clarification that needs to be made there, that this is not a kind of a shoestring, slap it together sort of thing. We're doing this the right way, and ultimately what we need, and what the backyard is showing now, is that there is a clear pathway for this city to change its zoning laws to accommodate the needs of the neighborhood. These unhoused people in our neighborhood are our neighbors, and that's where this began. Okay, was when we decided that we would no longer look at unhoused people as anything except our neighbor. Everybody in our neighborhood is our neighbor. Thanks.
Shannon.
Yeah, I think I could probably speak to 2 more things before we wrap up. One just being that what's happening here, and I know I'm here in my kind of role as someone with public health expertise, but I would say kind of regardless of that, just like listening to folks that are living here is incredibly important, and regardless of if the public health literature has caught up to this exact model before, I think that's kind of irrelevant just based on what we see happening here. And one other thing that I would like to bring up is speaking a little bit to the kind of burden that is being put on vulnerable communities as a result of these kinds of actions. Some literature that came out of Danya Keene's Housing and Health Equity Lab last year about informal housing provision found that a lot of housing insecure people and low income people were taking folks off the street into their own homes at the risk of either their housing vouchers, in some cases their sobriety, in some cases also just getting evicted for lease violations. And it kind of really speaks to the kind of broader failure and the scope of what's happening here, that vulnerable communities are kind of taking on this burden to help their neighbors and their communities when there's not other options.
I would just like to say, as someone who's living in the midst of this, as the governor declared, this health crisis that homelessness has become, I absolutely feel like the Rosette Neighborhood community has been invaluable to where I am today, and I don't know where I would be if I hadn't come here. And just what we're doing here is so just important and exceptional that we're putting a face to all those, to homeless and the unhoused, and we're putting it to that unseen problem of homelessness, and we're making it a community issue. And like we like to say here, the emergency is tonight. The emergency definitely is for a lot of people, and I wish that people could embrace just the overall importance and just truly needed actions that we're trying to do here, just as people, as community members, and I'm very hopeful that in the future they'll embrace these things. So.
Thanks. Christina?
Well, to kind of piggyback off what Suki was saying, this is so important, what's happening here. And beyond, when you're actually in it and you're experiencing it, so it's beyond, having some respite, it's beyond the community. It's so we're changing things, and hopefully, we're changing policies, we're changing the way people are going to think, and hopefully we're also setting an example of how this can actually be. This is successful. We're doing great things here. People need to see it and embrace it and be like, okay, well, we could do this here. We could put up here. Our mayor said, I was quoted, I think it was in the CT Mirror or one of those ones recently, that once people put up tents on public land, then it doesn't become public anymore. It's because you're making it that way. You're making it so people feel criminalized and this and that. Just set aside space.
Yeah.
Set aside space, because there's so much space, and there's so much space. You go down to where the tent city was over there.
Yeah.
What's going on there now? It's not, people are not having a picnic there, So I think what we're doing is so much more beyond sheltering and a sense of community. We're really impacting change, and we're really showing a good example of what it can be, because this country was so idealistic at one point. They never like Mark said, they never anticipated this wave of homelessness and poverty that was going to be happening. And we just need to change that. We need to change the way people think. We need to give people back their dignity, and just change the way people think about the unhoused. Because it's not, and trust me, no one here is lazy. They're these are some of the hardest working people I've ever been around. No one here is lazy. And it's not a matter of just getting up and getting a job and this and that. Everybody here has some sort of job, has some sort of work, has some sort of way that they work or contribute. So, I want people to know that. That we are just, and like I said, it's kind of a, community of family, and, this could happen anywhere, and anybody could do it.
Well, thank you. If that doesn't inspire people to do it, I don't know what will. Thank you all for your time and your openness and your insight. That concludes the panel. A couple of us are going to be on Zoom in a moment to answer any questions that you might have. Thanks for listening.